Welcome to the Seeking Wisdom podcast with Joni Marmo. Real stories, life lessons with faith at the center. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Heavenly Father, we thank you for bringing us together in this wonderful space, a safe space where we can just reminisce and just come together for your greater glory, Lord. We ask you to send the Holy Spirit upon us and upon this room. Send a legion of angels for protection and to keep us safe. And also use us as your vessels so that what we say is actually coming from you, Lord, so that we can help those who most need it, who most need to hear this message, and to just help us to be better people and to be better disciples and to follow always in your footsteps. We ask for the intercession of Mother Mary. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen.
Yes.
Okay, so we're ready. Is the glass half empty or half full? This is a very common idiom to illustrate whether your outlook is that of an optimist, half full, or a pessimist, half empty. It is said that how you perceive certain situations will either increase your stress levels or decrease them, making your life a little bit better. The Dalai Lama once said, "Optimism does not mean that you are blind to the reality of the situation. It means that you remain motivated to seek a solution to whatever problems arise." That's beautiful, isn't it? Except here's the thing. Some problems don't have solutions. They're just problems. So there's another common phrase related to optimism which says, "Every cloud has a silver lining." This statement really means that within those horrible storms in our lives, there's a positive outcome that can come from it. We just have to find it. In the letter of St. Paul to the Romans, chapter 8, verse 18, he writes, "I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory that is to be revealed to us." What a powerful statement, especially that he wrote it while in prison to the Romans who were persecuting very violently the Christians just as himself. And this verse reminds us that we can have hope in the suffering because something positive will come out of it. In today's episode of the Seeking Wisdom podcast, we're going to have an amazing conversation with someone who embodies that concept of finding the silver linings within the darkest of clouds. I'm your host, Joni Marmo, and I am so happy to welcome a dear friend who has been and is still going through difficulties and certain trials, but she manages to be that bright light in the room for all of us to see. Her story is awe-inspiring, and you will be inspired by her perseverance and her faith. Welcome, Luisa Varona Granados.
Thank you, Joni. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Oh, you have no idea how grateful I am that
and I
you're
love
here.
your introduction. I'm like, wow, I want to meet that girl.
And it's you. I was talking about you.
I was like, wow, this is impressive.
Yes, well, you're impressive because, full disclosure, Luisa and I went to high school together, so we've known each other a long time, but we're not going to talk about how long.
Why?
And it's funny because as I was prepping for the podcast, I found our senior high school yearbook, and we did all the Post-it notes, by the way, is where Luisa appeared in the yearbook. She was very popular, and we voted her best all around. And I got to say, our class did a really good job because you are best all around.
Oh,
you are so joyful. You've always been such a joyful person, such a positive person. You're so talented, uber smart.
I don't know about that.
No, yeah, you are. And you just radiate, like I said, you just radiate this light to other people. So I'm so glad that you're here.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank you
wanting
for the invitation.
Oh my goodness, please, because your story, I believe, is going to help so many people. Just to take a step back, I think sometimes, we need to like take a step back as we go through these difficulties in our lives and just change our perspective, you know, and look at things differently and and learn something from it, which is the whole purpose of this podcast, by the way, because we've all been through something, but I think it's the lessons that we learn from it that actually are what help us to grow, right? So,
and I'm happy to do it because, as you will hear in my story, when this happened to me or when all these things happened to me, I have constantly asked God, I've asked the Lord, like, why am I still here? Like, what do you want from me? What is my purpose? Like, what should I be doing? Because I don't want to waste the opportunities I've been given. And it's always to share. So I want to thank you because for some reason, the way I say it or how I say it may resonate with somebody that needs to hear it. And I don't know why, because I don't think I'm all that special. Thank you for that introduction. But maybe there's something that I say here today that will help somebody. And that, for me, would be everything.
Well, I'm very hopeful that will be the case. So let's get started. I always like to ask people for their background because I think context is important. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your upbringing, your background, where you're from?
Well, I'm Cuban American. I was born in Cuba. I'm one of those authentic Cubans. Like I would joke around in high school. We had a friend that was like, she thought I was American, like gringa. She was like, she did not know that I was Cuban. I was like, what are you talking about? I'm authentically Cuban. I'm the genuine real deal. I was born in Consolación de Su, Cuba.
Wow.
And she would be like, what?
What?
But I was carried out of Cuba as a 6-month-old. My father was a political prisoner. And so who I've learned many things. And I think my outlook, really, a lot of it is from my father. Yeah. But, when we left, when we had to leave, we settled here in Miami like so many others. Yeah. And my father did not want to be in Miami political. He had had enough of all of that. And we had been in Cuba, we were farmers. We were from a farming community in Consolación de Su del Rio, for those that want to look it up on Google. And we were farmers. And so he had this opportunity to come and help this other Cuban gentleman that wanted to, I think it was a tax shelter, like he got this property, but he had this dream of having avocados and limes, did not know how to do it. My father did. So we uprooted when I was about 4 years old, and we moved from Miami to the Redlands. Okay. And I lived there until I was 24 years old, like until Hurricane Andrew. But I grew up. So I always say that I was Cuban-born, Redland raised, homestead raised, and kind of formed in Miami, when I went to St. Brendan's and I met you and others. And, so that's a little bit of my childhood, my upbringing. I've always really related to my sort of down-home country, sort of farmer. I call myself la campesina. I'm like campesino.
Right, right.
I really relate to that. It's helped me kind of relate to others in that way. And the reason I bring this up and I start the conversation with that is because there's a lot of simplicity and we tend to complicate things more. But I found over the years that it's really all there. Like we're born with already all these. We know the answers. God, when we're born, we know what's right and wrong. We know life and death. It's a cycle. And you learn it very quickly on a farm. And you see that, yes, there are seasons. There are, there's, the droughts. There's the abundance. There's like the not, and there's the, abundance. There's the much. But you also see life and death very plainly. And so I think that kind of shaped me like throughout my life. And so I, circle back to where I was. I went to school in St. Brendan's with you. I went to University of Florida. I graduated. I went to Miami-Dade first. I took a year to figure out what it is that I wanted to do. I wasn't really sure. I think I wanted to be a journalist at some point. I wanted to be a broadcaster. I thought I wanted to be in front of the camera. And if you remember, now that you mentioned that about St. Martin's, I was a bit of a ham, you know?
Yes, she was.
I mean, for like my talent show was doing like Joan Rivers imitations, like, you know, a monologue that I created, you know, and, you know, I was a bit of a ham. People, I think, expected me to pursue maybe theater or something like that.
Yeah.
But I realized when I was studying journalism, I didn't really want to be in front of the camera. I liked the behind the scenes. I felt that the creative control was there more.
Yeah.
And I think you'll agree because we both ended up there.
Yes.
And I wanted to be a storyteller. And so I pursued that. I pursued film, television, and radio production.
Right.
And I mention radio now because I ended up in a roundabout way in radio today. But so I did that and I graduated and, you know, worked close to 30 years. I've lost track. I think I add time and then I detract that. But I was in TV for quite a bit of time.
You were in TV for a long time. But you know what? I'd like to go back a little bit to something you said, which really just, I kept it very together, but I was mind blown with what you just said. And I never really thought of it this way. I guess because I never grew up as a campesina, right? Or like with agriculture itself. But wow, that it really did shape you, that and where you are today in like the seasons and feast or famine and, you know, a flower, you know, or whatever, a crop, you know, is blooming and then it dies and it's cyclical, right? Yes. So all of those things informed where you are today, which we'll get to in a minute. But I just wanted to just go back to that because that really, I don't know, that pierced me in just a beautiful way. And you were very young. When you saw, in other words, you had a lot of insight from a young age for you to be able to discern that.
And I think it comes from being, we lived on a farm, like on 100, I mean, it was like a lot of acres. I think like a Cuban, I think I've added acreage to this place. But
footnote, Cubans, we tend to exaggerate, and we're Cubans, so we can say that. We exaggerate.
I grew up on 100 acres. That's a lot of acres. But it felt very isolated, like a lot. But we did not own this property. My son like jokes around, you were indentured servants. Like we worked the land for the owner of the property, and the part of the deal is that we got to live in the house on the property and not pay. I think that's a very important footnote. But I grew up with so much space and so much like terreno, as you know, like so much land. But what happens there is that you don't have neighbors. You don't have a lot of people to play with as a little kid.
Right.
And so my playmate was my brother, who's like 5 years older than me, like 4.5 years older. And so you you learn to be alone when you're on a farm.
Right.
And I tell my kids this a lot, that you need to be comfortable with the quiet. You need to be comfortable in the aloneness in life, you know, and find,
and the stillness.
In the stillness. There's a lot of beauty in that. And so I remember as a young girl being like, I'm so bored. Like we all, you know, I'm so bored. I want to do this. I want to do that. And my aunt, who was like, like a grandmother to me, but my aunt like lived with us. It was my mom, my dad, and my Aunt Bia. And she never married, she never had kids, and she was 10 years older than my dad, which made her 20 years older than my mother. She was like a mother to my mom.
Right.
And she always tell me, there's always something to do. Like, why are you bored? There's always something to do. There's always like a weed to pull. There's always eggs to go get. Like when you're on a farm, eggs to go get, a plant to water, like something to do. There's always something to do. And I learned that from living on a farm. And I think it served me well throughout my life. But yes, you're right. I was very young, but which is why I think it's so important for kids to have pets.
Yeah.
Like as a young girl, I would see like, you know, the chickens hatch pollitos or like chicks and the ducks hatch ducklings and, you know, and you would like be surrounded by, you know, but they would get killed. They would get like, you know, attacked by wild dogs that people would leave on the property or like by owls that would come and swoop down and get them. And what you learn is that circle of life that like, yes, you're given and there's a give and take to everything, but there's a beauty in that moment of enjoying that for what it is. And you have to enjoy it. And I don't know why. I don't know. Perhaps I'm a strange cat, but I learned that, you know, from those times. And I think about it often. Like one of my happiest childhood memories is lying down in the grass on the side of my house, like just lying down with my eyes closed, like up in the, you know, looking up, feeling the sun on my face. And I don't know why, but this is my go-to happy place.
Yeah.
It's laying down on just the grass after it's been mowed and the smell of fresh cut grass, you know, because we would cut the grass with tractors and that's like a happy, like that to me. And in those moments, I always found peace. Right. Yeah. So I go to it a lot because, and I describe this to my kids because they're very simple moments.
Yeah.
Very simple moments.
I think we tend to overcomplicate our lives so much so. And I think the more technology, the more, you know, things become so easy to attain. I think we also tend to be more impatient and then we want everything so much quicker. And then that's where all this anxiety and all this stress and all these things, you know, come into play. And then we lose that
let me
simplicity.
Tell you, it's not like I'm like a country girl all in all. I mean, I ended up in the city. You know?
But still.
But I go, my happy thoughts are there. And I did end up contributing to the problem. I ended up working in entertainment and production and TV and I was filled with music and noise and a lot of distractions and I loved my job and I loved what I did. Yeah. But even that background, Joni, served me in those moments because when I would interview guests for Don Francisco Presenta, like because I was at Univision, you know, I would, he would laugh with me because I would relate to the guests like that were campesinos or from, you know, like Mexico, you know, and they would talk about their life on the ranch or whatever. And I understood them
100%.
so well, 100%. And it served me, it helped me connect to people. And there's something about it, like, you know, that you, like, you just take things in stride, you know? Right. You take it for what it is. And
it's a different outlook. Yeah. And just a bit of context because, for those of, you know, the people that are listening or watching us. So from Miami to the Redlands, right? It's basically like what, 20 something, 30 miles,
like, you know,
right?
It's
like the outskirts of Miami. Because I think everybody just calls everything Miami, but you know, just to give context,
it's west,
right?
It's west and it's south,
right?
And it was traditionally the farming area of Miami, but now I joke around that they're not growing avocados and limes, they're growing houses in the Redlands, and it's really developed now. A lot of developers bought land there because after Hurricane Andrew, a lot of the original families that were from that area left, and they went to North Carolina or, you know.
Yeah, a lot of people freaked out after Hurricane Andrew because it was unexpected. I mean, it was
completely unexpected, and they lost their livelihood. They lost their crop. You know. Yes. And so people sold their lands, and a lot of those lands went to developers, and so and then the city has grown considerably.
Well, I mean, half of the world has moved to Florida, so
everybody, especially after COVID.
Especially after COVID, it's like, oh my gosh.
And so they started to build up that land. So the way I grew up maybe is not the way it is now. There's still some pockets. Yeah. But yeah, it was a quieter pace, a quieter time.
But I think that sets the groundwork, no pun intended, but it sounds like a pun, for the rest of your life. Yeah. So as you've mentioned, you worked in television and, you know, now circling, you know, full circle radio and even this platform podcasting. Yeah. And you were successful. I mean, you did really well. The last time I saw you, was at an award ceremony in
Los
LA.
Angeles, yeah.
I can't remember for the life of me what the award was.
It was in the Imagen.
The Imagen Awards. And you won.
And I won.
Yes.
Yeah, it was for Combate Americas, which was a show that we co-produced with Buna Murray at the time. And it was like my last big production, I'll be honest with you, before we'll get into.
Yes.
And I was the executive producer on that. And and we won for best variety. I think it was best variety competition reality, because it was a competition reality show. And it's so funny. I do not love reality TV.
Yeah.
You know?
Me neither.
You know, it's not real. But
Spoiler alert.
Spoilers. But I didn't love it, but I loved the people that I met, the fighters, because they were MMA fighters.
Oh my goodness.
And I related to them, back to being a campesina. I related to them on
Please
that
explain.
level. You know, because there was a guy that came from Mexico that was in Miami, and he was fighting for his family and for the life or whatever. And there was another guy from Bakersfield, California, that was fighting. And it was interesting to me because I understood them. I'm not a fighter. I'm not an MMA fighter. But I understood their motivation and their desire to do this. And they were doing it with what they have, what they could do, and what the skill that was available to them was fighting. And they were, MMA fighters and healthy and but they did it all for their families.
Yeah.
And I really related to that. And I understood. But yes, that was a production I ran into you.
Yes.
I think it was at the Beverly Hilton.
Yeah, it was super
I felt so she.
I know.
Because that's where they do the Golden Globes.
Yes.
And the most interesting thing about all of that to me was that in the front row was the guy that started the Imagen Awards was the Archie Bunker producer, and I can't for the life of me. Norman Lear.
Yes.
So Norman Lear is sitting in the front row with his little hat. Do you remember?
Yes.
Anyway, it was Norman with a tux and a little hat, sitting in the front row, and I remember walking up and being so impressed that he was sitting there in front of me, smiling at us that we were receiving the award, because it was whoa. This is the man that produced every show that meant something to me in the 70s, right? Like Archie Bunker, the Jeffersons.
Yes. Great TV.
All in the Family. Archie Bunker's All in the Family. But great TV, Maude, things that really made an impact.
Yes.
Yes. And really gave us a voice, and I thought that was so cool.
It was cool. And just like you said, it was ooh, what are we all doing here? It was very, bougie. I don't know what they say nowadays, but it was really cool. I was very happy for you.
This Wajida from Cuba and from the Redlands end up here. I was
but it was amazing.
How did this happen?
I'm telling you, because I think we were sitting at the table next to you and your team, and when you won, I was so genuinely happy for you. I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. And then, but shortly after that,
so yes,
something big happens in February 2016. Life-altering news. So tell us what happened.
So that award, when you saw me, that was summer. That was August of 2015.
So, yeah. Right.
And you know how it is in TV. Things are stressful. There's always changes. There's always the new guard coming in and changing, and you're always adjusting to your demographic or your audience, and everything changes and everybody gets fired, right? It's just part of the ebb and flow and the cycles of life.
Right.
TV does it too. And at that time, I was very stressed. I think I spent the last 5 years of my TV career expecting to be fired at any moment.
So
right?
sad.
Because that's how they make you feel. But it's also just, it's the lifespan of what I was doing.
Right.
And I remember it was September of 2015, I was going to be laid off. I knew this. We were going to be laying people off in December. And I remember thinking, I don't know for what reason I wasn't feeling myself anymore. I was really tired. I would be in meetings and be kind of a little checked out. And I attribute it to stress, because we operated in a very stressful environment.
High intensity, fast paced.
Very competitive.
Yes.
And for what? Everybody was just kind of fighting for their their job security, right? And I was just like checked out. Like I was like, there's nothing for me here anymore. Like it's the way I felt. And so I remember telling my boss at the time, who I loved, but she had all the energy and excitement of starting a new job. And I was at 10 years. Yeah. I was at the end of it, right? And I was like, I'm not your girl. Like, I don't have the... And I remember telling them, you know what? I know I'm going to be laid off in December. I just want to spend time with my kids and enjoy the holidays. Can I just, let's just cut it off here? Because I didn't get, I was like, I don't see... the purpose of like sticking around until December. So I left, and they gave me a package, and they honored my 10 years, and they were going to lay me off. Right. And so I went home really happy, thinking, you know what, I'm going to like lose weight. I'm going to like focus on my health. I'm going to finally go to all the doctors that I don't go to because I was always working or in LA because, I was like in LA 1 week out of the month every month practically for 10 years. It was a stressful time. And September I go, I decide that I'm going to be a freelancer again. I do a job in October, and I'm like, at that job, I realized I couldn't really run. I couldn't really carry things. Okay. I couldn't, I didn't have a lot of balance. And actually prior to that, I was at a dinner when I was still working at NBC Universal, with one of my coworkers, and we were at this awards presentation for, in the music industry. Like we went to a BMI dinner, and I couldn't use my fork, and I couldn't walk in my heels all of a sudden, and I thought, this is weird. Yeah. This is strange. So when I finally but it passed. Like I remember telling my coworker, listen, you stay. I'm going to go home. I'm not feeling well. Mm-hmm. I think they thought I was probably drinking. Right. Because the effects are like you're drunk.
So you were kind of like losing motor skills, I guess?
Motor skills there, and I was losing balance. Mm. So, but I go home and everything's fine. I drove home from from the Fontainebleau to my house in Kendall, which is very far, Miami Beach to West Kendall. But it passed, and I was fine. And so now, back to September, and I decided I'm going to go to the doctor, and I'm telling my regular doctor, you know what, I'm having these weird symptoms. And they're like, you should see a neurologist. Everything that you're experiencing is neurological. Mm-hmm. And I did, and I made an appointment. And so in February of 2016, I find out I have a brain tumor. So I thought I had MS because, I'm Cuban, so we self-diagnose.
Right, of course. Yeah.
We're like doctors.
Yes.
We know it all.
Yes, that's part of the culture, yes.
That's part of our culture. Yes. Ahí todo el mundo receta, we're all prescribe
ourselves things. Yeah. This is what you have. Take this.
This is definitely.
Yes.
And I remember at that time, there was a story on the Today Show. There was an actress that had been diagnosed with MS. Mm-hmm. And when she described everything I was like, I have MS. That's what I have.
Right.
So when I went to the doctor...
But this was before you went to the neurologist?
I went to the neurologist and told him, I have MS.
Okay.
And he looked at me like, let's do an MRI. Shall we?
Yeah.
Perhaps we should do an MRI first.
Let's do that first.
Let me do my job. Okay. So I went, and and I remember it was the reason it's so clear to me. It was February. It was President's Day weekend, and we were going to go camping with the kids. I was, and I thought, we'll go camping. We'll come back. I had an appointment with him. He told me, I'll see you on February 22nd. Was the date he told me, and we'll go over the results. But he called me, the office called me right away, and it was that weekend. And I was thinking, when they don't call you right away, it's good news, there's nothing going on. Yeah. And so I made it through I remember, they didn't call me right away, so I'm probably fine. But then they wanted to see me. And so I told the poor lady, these people call the patients. And I told her, well, I have an appointment on the 22nd. And she was like, but he needs to see you before. Oh. And that's the first key. So Luisa's reaction is like, oh, I have MS. Mm. They found it. right? So I go to
You went back to your own diagnosis.
like,
Yeah.
I'm a doctor.
Right, of course.
So I went to, plus I saw a lot of Grey's Anatomy at this point. You know, I was like, come on. I'm practically a surgeon. So I went to, you know, the appointment with my husband at the time. I was still married. And I told him, listen, my husband, pobrecito, but he is a man that like would turn everything into like, you know, about him and like his fears or how he's feeling or whatever.
Okay. Got it.
And so I told him, listen, I need you not to talk because I have a feeling that I'm going to be told things that I really have to process.
Yeah.
And so let me do the talking on this one. Let me process it. We'll process it together afterward, but let me hear what they have to say. And I knew from the moment, from like the doctor's like face was so different. Then when, you know, he was kind of like laughing at us before, but then it was very serious. And he pulls up the scans, and I didn't know what I was looking at
because you really aren't a surgeon.
I'm really not a surgeon.
Grey's Anatomy did not give you the medical degree that you thought you had.
Like I thought, oh, for sure, I'm gonna know what I'm looking at. But what I saw was white clouds. Like it was like over my entire brain scan was scrambled eggs. It was like white clouds. And I did see one little mass, like what he was pointing it out to me, you have a brain tumor. Like he said, you have a brain tumor. And I was not prepared for that, you know.
Right, because you thought you genuinely had MS.
I was like, well, what do I do with a brain tumor? So what I remember of that was the deafening, because I did tell my husband at the time not to talk.
Right, of
so
course.
he didn't. And it was like very quiet. And I looked at it and I looked at the doctor and I was like, is it operable? And he was like, no. And it was like this. Like I realized if it's not operable, what are my choices? I mean, I was looking at it, it was right near, I saw the midline of the brain and it was right next to it. And I knew enough medicine, Joni, to know that was not good.
Yeah,
you know, like the midline of the brain, the data center of your brain that goes from right to left, like what the hell? And I go, well, is it curable? And he was like, no. And that was it. Like I just felt like, wow. And so he goes, I'm going to go, the next thing he said to me is you need to go to the emergency room. We need to do a brain biopsy. And I was like, what is, everything started to move so quickly.
Right.
It went from silence to like, what? Like a brain biopsy?
Yeah.
Emergency room? Like, why would I go to the emergency room for my brain?
Yeah.
You know, and I was like, what do you mean the emergency room? And he's like, well, because we need to know what kind of brain tumor this is. And you've waited. Because based on my symptomology, what I was telling him, he felt that I'd waited too long.
Okay.
Right? But now I realized, you know, hindsight, that I actually acted quickly, you know, quicker than I thought.
Right.
And so he's like, we need to get a brain biopsy, and it's very difficult to see a specialist, you know, and you know, it'll take some time to see a specialist. So I was like, oh, but I said to him, but we're going to go camping with my kids. Do you think that we can wait until Monday? And he was like he looked at me and was like, oh, you know, yeah, but you can't wait past Monday. Like, I think he realized that I was...
Yeah, you were going through... But it's funny how we respond to these situations, because in your mind, you're still kind of processing this. But to you, you were like, but wait, no, I want to keep living my normal life. I need to go camping. Like, that was part of your plan.
My thought was my children.
Right, right.
I have 2 little boys at home.
How old were they?
They were 7 and 9. And I just desperately needed to keep things on track.
Normal. Right? Yeah.
For them.
Yeah.
Because something told me things were about to derail very quickly.
Yeah.
Looking at this doctor's face.
Yeah.
Interpreting the silence of my shocked, you know, husband at the time. I realized this is going to be very quick. whatever this is.
Yeah.
So I went home. We left. We left with the idea that, okay, doctor, we'll go to the emergency room. He goes, I will send to Baptist. It was a Baptist hospital there. And he's like, well, I'll send the stuff. And I guess, do I meet you there? Like, what? Who's going to do this brain biopsy? Like this needle biopsy. And by the way, it was dangerous. The needle biopsy was dangerous too, because my brain was swollen. And so I could have stroked out. I could have died just in
the biopsy.
In the biopsy. Yeah. And he made that clear to me at the time. And so I was like, I need to get home. I need to see my kids, and I need to figure this out, but I need to figure it out. Like, I guess I was like, I need to, when I'm in like a stressful thing or I sense danger, I get very quiet. Like, because I need to see the exits. Okay. I need to assess the danger for myself to know how to proceed, right? So I get home and, my husband let his father know, let people know what was going on. I forget who called who. Like, people in my immediate family were finding out that this was happening. And so there was a doctor, like a neurosurgeon friend. Everybody has a surgeon friend.
But isn't it funny though how those things pop up in those moments that you don't really think about, but then like you said, wait, we have a neurosurgeon friend. Okay.
Yeah, because when you open up that conversation, like, you quickly realize how many angels or how many people are in your area. Right.
And your community. That's why community is so important.
So important.
Yes.
That's why I always tell people, it's your choice how you take a diagnosis. You can choose to keep it private, or you can choose to be open about it. I chose to be open because I needed community. Yeah. Some people are not comfortable with that, and I respect that. But I chose. So, and a lot of people around me chose for me, because then they contacted their friends and the friends and the this and the that. And this particular neurosurgeon that was contacted scared the hell out of me. Oh. Like, it was not the actual because they had two neuros. I don't know what it is in my family group, but we knew a lot of neurosurgeons for some reason. Like, I'm telling you, everybody watched Grey's. Everybody was.
I was gonna say, this is back to Grey's Anatomy.
I mean, like, we were all like, I mean, And so he called me. I was at home still trying to process, like, whether I was going to go to the emergency room. And he calls me, and he had seen the scans because they had shared it with him. And he goes, and his comment to me was, I don't think you understand how serious this is. And I was like, well, I just found out. Like, I felt like I just found out like 15 minutes ago. Right. And I'm like, of course I know how serious it is. I don't think you know how serious this is. This brain tumor is in an area of your brain that makes you who you are. It's going to affect everything that makes you who you are. It's going to affect your speech, your hearing, your eyesight, and your mobility. And I was like, what? And I was like, listen, with all due respect, I understand how serious it is. At no point have I not. I just need time to figure it out, and I'm going to call the doctor. And I had already called the other neurosurgeon specialist, right?
So for timing purposes, you hadn't done the biopsy yet, and you hadn't done the camping yet.
This is like, no, we decided
this was immediate. Okay.
This is immediate.
Camping got canceled.
Oh, God, that got canceled. We did not go camping.
I don't know. You just never know.
We did not go camping. And all these conversations are within an hour of getting home and hearing all this stuff.
Oh, wow. So everything happened very quickly.
It was so fast.
Yeah.
It was like a snowball thing. And so they called the other neurosurgeon doctor, because this neurosurgeon was a professor at UM, like in the medical school. He wasn't really practicing. So we called the other neurosurgeon. And then next thing I know, he's like, come see me. This was like a Wednesday. I saw him or a Thursday. I saw him on a Friday. Mm-hmm. We went to his office. And we scheduled me for a biopsy right away. He saw me right away. And the question, and this is in keeping with Seeking Wisdom and this podcast, I will never forget this. And he retired since then. But I will never forget this question. He asked me, do you have faith? Are you a person of...
The doctor asked you this.
which
That's
I
so
thought
unusual.
so unusual.
Yeah.
And he asked me, "Are you a person of faith?" But he asked me very matter of fact. And I was like, nobody had asked me at that point. And I was, but I never really thought about it all that much. Yeah. And I looked at him and I said, as a matter of fact, I am. And he said, good. That's all. I remember that exchange as so weird from a special, because, neurosurgeons and thoracic surgeons have that God.
Yes, yes. I mean, that's a generalization, but
they do. They have your life in their hands. Like a cardiovascular surgeon can save you, and so can a neurosurgeon. Like it's like these are things that they're very specialized fields. And when he asked me that question, I was just like, wow, and then the follow-up to that was, I cannot quantify it or qualify it. I cannot, from a scientific point of view, explain to you why that is. But I have found in my profession, and he was about to retire, that the patients that I've had with faith have fared better than those without. Now, that better is all open to interpretation. It could be that we just handled it better, that we just accepted it more, and that we were at peace, because there's a lot to surrendering to these things. Or it could be that we lived longer for whatever reason. Yeah. I don't know what the better was that he meant. I never asked. I don't want to ask a lot of questions, Joni. I just accept.
Right.
And so I went in, we did the biopsy, and it was inconclusive. Right. Okay. So it took me 2 biopsies to figure out, to land on something.
Yeah.
And nobody landed ever on anything conclusive, because my brain tumor is in an area that is so difficult to get to. You have to cross so much brain. And it is so dangerous that I cannot do a 3rd biopsy. It's not even possible. And they did get some. And so what they got was a little bit of everything. It could be an astrocytoma, which is still a bad tumor. It's still aggressive. Yeah. It's a 10-year, I call it the 10-year tumor. Okay. And I'm at 9 years. Okay. But, that's an or it could be a glioblastoma, which is the 1-year tumor. Right. The 9-year to 1 year. And they decided to treat it aggressive. I went to another neurosurgeon and goes, I'm going to go with the reading of your first reading from that first scan, because I do believe it's aggressive, because it was active in PET scans. Okay. So it is cancerous. And I'm going to treat it like a glioblastoma aggressively. Even though it wasn't officially... It was official on one diagnosis from the first neurologist. He says, I believe this is a glioblastoma. Okay. And he wrote it in the notes. And so my neurosurgeon went with that, because a lot of this has to do with insurance and how you're going to treat it, and like what's going to get approved, or whatever. And he knew that it was an aggressive tumor. It could be an astro, like I said, a 10. I don't believe it's a glioblastoma, but that is what I currently have on my diagnosis. Officially. Now, I have to tell you, officially, there have been people with the glioblastoma that have lived 10 years or more. Yeah. It is possible. Right. And my neurosurgeon believes it is a glioblastoma. It's just that I caught it very early. I actually beat myself up about it at the beginning. I thought, I didn't act. I didn't go to the doctor soon enough. And he was the one that told me, no, you actually acted very quickly. Yeah. And so I switched neurosurgeons, because where I was, they told me there was nothing they could do. And so you have to be kind of proactive about these things, for yourself. Yes. You have to meet God halfway, is what I always say. Yeah, you have to cooperate. Yeah. You can't be sitting there waiting, like whatever. But I do believe, and my faith has taught me that, medicine exists for, God has given us the knowledge to solve these things. And we are able to heal ourselves in many ways and make ourselves sick as well. Yeah. But you have to meet them halfway, And so when they told me there was nothing to do at my first neurosurgeon, I was like, I got to do something. because I have a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old. And I knew that even that something, if it was even extending my life 6 months, I had to do that.
Yeah.
And so they told me that I went to the doctor. Like, it was so funny because they gave me a book when I first got my brain biopsy that was kind of like brain tumors for dummies.
Oh my gosh.
It was like, so you've been diagnosed with a brain tumor, like what to expect kind of book.
Right.
And I read through it, and it was a horror story. It was like
scary,
each
right?
page was scarier than the other one, and it was a hopeless book. There wasn't a lot of hope to be found in that book. But curiously enough, the guy that wrote the foreword in that book had been a glioblastoma patient that was still alive at the time that I was reading this book, had been living with it for 20 years. And he did a lot of research for Duke Research Center.
Duke University?
Duke University.
Okay.
And I was reading this book like, well, like, I mean, what to expect, right?
Yeah.
So when I went back to the doctor, like after that first brain biopsy, before the second, and that, by the way, there's like 4 months had passed.
Okay.
I started asking questions because I hadn't asked enough, right? So and he was like, "Well, why are you asking me all these questions? Like, what? Have you been on WebMD? Like, are you like?" I go, "No, I'm reading the book that you guys gave me at the hospital."
Yeah.
He's like, "Let me see that book," and he looked at it. And he's like, "Oh, don't read this," And I was like, "Yeah, good." So I threw it away. I didn't. I was like, "I'm not gonna read it." But I do want to ask you, can we do gamma knife? And he was like, no, your brain tumor is not one that is gamma knifeable.
And what's gamma knife?
Gamma knife is what I ended up doing.
Oh.
It's a very concentrated radiation where they go in. It's the physicists and the whole thing is that you go in to like they do it with an MRI, like in the MRI machine.
Okay.
It's very pinpointed, like where they go and they zap it with enough radiation to burn around. Like what we did was we burnt around the edges of that tumor so it wouldn't progress to cross. Because if it crossed to the thalamus, I'd be dead like that.
Got it. Okay, so it kind of contained it to
so we had to contain it to where it was, so it wouldn't grow. And I mean, it's not a very scientific description of gamma knife. I mean, you guys could Google
because again, Grey's Anatomy didn't teach you
because again, I'm really not a doctor. But what happened was everybody was telling me, call this doctor, call that doctor, which is also very overwhelming.
Yes,
when you're in it. And by this time I'm at 7 months. I'm like, well, I mean, if I only have 9 months to live, I only have 2 more months to go.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at these kids looking at me like, and the mess all around me. And I'm like, I got to do something. So a friend of mine that worked with me at MTV, curiously enough, had told me, you need to call. She was a publicist for this doctor that ended up being my doctor. And she was like, you need to call him. Because yes, he doesn't have the most warm and fuzzy bedside manner, and but he's amazing. And I wish her sister-in-law had died of a brain tumor, and so she had wished her sister-in-law had gone to see him.
Okay.
And she was, I wish I would have known him then, and I wish she would have gone, but she didn't. And I think you should go see him. And so she called him on a cell phone, and I'm like overwhelmed because everybody's calling me and telling me to do this, do that. And she calls me back, call him, he's waiting for your call. I'm like, I'm not going to call this doctor like on his cell phone. No, call him, he's waiting for your call, which is my current doctor, which is Dr. Wolf, who I love. And I love his prickly bedside manner because I relate to. I love a doctor that throws a good F-bomb. Like, I'm okay with that.
There you go.
And so I called him, and right away, like in that call and that conversation was so weird. It's like, what do you have? What do you, what did they tell you? What did they tell you? And I was like, well, this and that. And he goes, hold on a second. And he started fighting with some guy in a parking spot. And I'm on the phone going, like, what is going on? Right? And he's fighting with the guy. And he gets back on the phone. Come see me tomorrow. Come see me at the office. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I was fighting with somebody. Somebody was parking in my partner's parking spot. That's not their spot. And I'm thinking to myself, this guy is willing to fight for his partner's parking spot, he's going to fight for me.
Yeah.
That was my thought.
Right.
Right? So I go, if anybody that would get into an argument over somebody else's parking spot is a fighter, is the scrappy kind of doctor I need right now.
Yeah.
So I went to go see him. And he was like the Clint Eastwood. He is, because he's still alive, but he's like the Clint Eastwood of brain tumors. He's like the make my day kind of guy. He's like, he looked at my scans, he was like, I can do this. I go, well, because they told me that it's not, that Gamma Knife is not, that they can't do it. He goes, I can do it. You know, they don't know what they're doing. I can do it. Yeah. And then he opened up the door and he like tells her, because what insurance do you have? And at the time I had United Healthcare. It's not a commercial, but like at the time. And he goes, how much time to get approval from the insurance? And she's like, oh, it takes 10 days. Okay, schedule her 10 days.
Right.
And I was like, well, I haven't spoken to I came here for a second opinion. And he looked at me and goes, what you've lost, you're not going to regain. What you've already lost, you've only lost 10%. If you wait any longer, you're going to lose more, and you don't have time.
And when he said what you've lost, what did he mean?
Because he had given me an exam. He had seen my strength was diminished.
See.
My hand, my leg. I had, I wasn't, but I had the facial droop.
Yeah.
I have it in my right side. Like I have, when you'll go back and see this, you'll see that there are signs, there are things that I've been affected. And he goes,
so that's what he meant when you said what you've lost.
You've already lost. You're not going to regain that.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you that I can do this, and you cannot afford to wait any longer. So I went back home and I consulted everybody, and there was a friend of ours from my everybody was praying for me.
Yeah.
And a friend who's a deacon at Epiphany that was my children's pediatrician at the time had told us, you go with a doctor that gives you hope.
Yeah. It's funny, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it's interesting because he's prickly, not good bedside manner, fighting with the guy about a parking space, all these things, right? But he gave you he was very honest with you. Very, like, if you can qualify it as very sobering information, right? Like, girlfriend, this is not good for you. But it was laced with hope. But I can
do it, yes.
You know what I mean? And that's the beauty of it. It's like, you don't have to, sometimes we want things to be sugar-coated. Yeah. And then sometimes in doing that, it kind of, the information gets lost. And I think in this case, the fact that he was so on point, direct, but then he gave you that hope.
Tough love.
Yes.
I needed the tough love because I think I would have waited a little bit longer and been like, I don't know. And I'm such a pleaser that I didn't want to upset the other doctor.
Right.
Like I felt bad because I was a friend of the family's and I didn't want to upset them.
Yeah.
And so I'm a pleaser. So I was like, and I remember thinking, well, this guy is telling me he can do something, so I'm going to go with him. And it's really interesting because I lost my train of thought. I'm going to blame my brain tumor, but he always was. You're so right. He's very prickly and all this stuff, but there was always like this feeling that. And by the way,
that you'll come out. That you'll come out of it, or that there's, in that another friend in another episode mentioned, like, within that darkness, if you just find that little bit of light, right? And in this case, again, going back to the theme of the silver linings, right? Yes. Like, okay, there's all this craziness going around. And I think you're right in what you mentioned a bit ago about, and it's a good intentions, right? But like when you're in the middle of something like what happened to you, you get this very serious diagnosis. Yeah. So it's like all hands on deck. Everyone is trying to help you. But at the same time, you're getting bombarded with so many different, whether it's information,
it's so much,
a comment, whatever it is.
And you get analysis paralysis from
it. Yes, because you get stuck in it. But then it's also an opportunity. And in your case, going back to your upbringing, right, of seeing the simple things in life, and where it's like, you're able to discern
Well, I knew,
what's good for you and what's not going to be, right? Like you have to almost remove yourself from the situation and look at it a little bit more objectively in order to make the right decision.
And I'll be honest, Joni, and that time, and it's so funny because I was going to tell you that particular doctor who I love his tough love. Every time I go see him, he tells me I'm not supposed to be here.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be dead.
Wow.
And he will tell all the other like doctors he's training.
Yeah.
Oh, this is Luisa. She came to me and, 9 years ago and this is the scan and here it is. She's supposed to be dead. She's not supposed to be here and here she is. And I'm like, hi. I'm always like, hi, doctor.
The poster child of I'm not supposed to be here.
I love coming here. I love being told, I'm supposed to be dead. But what I was going to tell you is I remember doing all this bombardment of information, everybody in a panic. And because, when you're going through something like this, you're processing grief already automatically for everybody around you and yourself.
Yeah.
And I had 2 children, 2 little boys.
Which I was going to ask you. So when did you tell your kids?
So before the first biopsy.
Okay.
They were little, they could tell everything was going on. First of all, something was happening that was so weird. There were so many people in our house. There were so many people coming to see me. It was almost like my funeral. Right? And it was like living through your funeral. I remember that time thinking, wow, I'm getting so much love, so much prayer, so much attention, so much, I felt very bolstered by it and very comforted by it. But I was also so happy to hear and see everybody and to feel all that love and for my children to see it, and so they knew something was going on because what?
And the camping trip was canceled.
What's going on, Mom?
Back to the camping trip.
What's going on? We're not camping? And there's so many people and everybody's bringing food.
Yeah.
Which is and everybody was, the show of support was, I'll tell you, my son, years later, thank God, years later, told me that the happiest time of his life, the happiest summer he remembers was that summer after I was diagnosed.
Wow.
But to give you an idea of perspective.
Yeah.
And it was because the house was full of people.
Yeah.
People were bringing us food. He remembered, I had a friend that made pizzas. She came over with her boyfriend at the time and we were going to make pizzas. And they remembered the ingredients on the table and making pizzas. And people would deliver lasagnas and chicken. And they were like, oh, that was the best summer ever. There was always something to eat because I do not cook. And there was now I do, but at that time I didn't. Yeah. And there was so much, but it's that feeling, I remember, terrible things are happening.
But there's a positive outcome out of all of it, right?
Out of all of it. And then my son, I pulled him aside. I remember, well, I better tell him something because they're seeing all this going on and they're very confused. And I sat him down right before it because I didn't think I would survive the biopsy. We had a friend, the son of friends of ours, of someone here with me, that had just died of a brain tumor. Months, and this is a very interesting order of events because he died in March. And
of that year.
Before I was diagnosed, in 2015.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And I remember being at that funeral and asking questions like, what were his symptoms? Because I was already not feeling well. I was already not feeling myself.
Yeah.
I would zone out, I would lose space and time.
Yeah.
And I was and I would hear, and it happened so quickly. But I remember being, and it wasn't about making it about myself, but I remember thinking, God, look at everything that's going on. The way God prepares you for things. Yeah. Yeah. I remembered that happening and seeing all that and the grief. And we were all devastated by the loss of this young man. He was going to be a father and he didn't even get to meet a son, and all these things going on. And I remember there's something about this that I need to remember. And I didn't know why. And there's something about what's going on here that I need to, for whatever reason. So I remember I'm like, I got to prepare my kids, because they're so young that when this all goes down, they're not going to know me.
Yeah.
They're not going to, they may remember the pain, but I don't want them to remember the pain. I want them to remember me, So I grabbed Juan Antonio, my oldest, and Max was really at La La Land. But I do remember both of them together. And I said, I'm going to be going in to the hospital, but they're going to be doing this needle biopsy, and they're going to find out what kind of brain tumor I have. And they were just like,
in shock.
Yeah. They had heard about it.
Right.
Because they could overhear everybody talking, and they saw the stress, and they saw the prayers, and they saw, like I told you, like the house is full. Mm-hmm. And so they didn't say much. I go, do you have any questions? I remember ask me questions. This is the time to ask me questions. Maybe, so you can understand how I feel. And I told them, I want you to know I'm not afraid. Mm. I'm not afraid. I'm going to go into this. And then my oldest says, Mom, I don't want you to die. Mm-hmm. And I was, because he was the only honest one to say what he was thinking. I don't want you to die. And he started crying. Mm. And I said, well, one, we're on the same page. I don't want to die either. So I'm going to do everything in my power to stay alive. But if I don't, you're going to be okay. And he was just like, of course, he's a little boy. Yeah. But I wanted him to know it's going to be okay. Yeah. Because even though I don't know why, maybe it was a tumor that made me loopy, I don't know. I was convinced it was going to be okay. Yeah. There was something about it that I felt it was going to be okay. Yeah. And I think it was my faith, obviously. Mm-hmm. But I needed it to be okay.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, now they look back on that time as, a very joyful time. Yeah. And going back to like the silver linings, it's interesting how sometimes these, very harrowing events actually bring out the best in us and the best in people. And, and you can look back on it with a smile and say, wow, that was a beautiful time, even though it was so stressful at the same time.
It was scary. Yeah. And it's so interesting. Before I came here, because I did start a blog a year after. Yeah. Like I was diagnosed, and I know you want to talk to me about it, but I started a blog for them because when I saw that I had survived the 2 brain biopsies and I was kind of okay for now. Yeah. I decided, well, I've got to make good use of this time that I've been given. Right. And I'm going to write for them. I wanted them to have something that they could go back and they could hear and get to know me through my words and my voice, and not necessarily how other people remembered me or what their father would remember or my brother, my mother was still alive at the time. Whatever it was, I wanted them to understand and get a sense of humor about it, right? Yeah. And so I started to write for them, knowing that they weren't gonna get to it then. It would be something they would go
down the road. The road. And let's talk about it. Yeah. And I loved it too. Tumor Clarity.
Tumor Clarity.
I love that title. Clarity. You're such a great writer, by the way.
Thank you.
But I think you're such an insightful person, but that's just part of your personality because, again, going back to when you were a child, you saw things differently. You saw the simplicity of things and everything for what it is, right? And that's how you are in everything. Yeah. And Tumor Clarity, which was such a great title, tell us a little bit about that. So you wrote that for your kids.
I wrote it I started writing. I just one day decided I needed to just write because I've always been a journaler. Yeah. I kept journals since I was 10 years old, and I couldn't really write with a pen. Mm. So I started typing. And I got on my laptop and I just started writing. And so it happened, I started it on the 1-year anniversary of being diagnosed. Okay. So, and my first entry in Tumor Clarity was February, of 2017. And what's interesting about it is I had not reread it. Now I'm compiling these as a memoir, but I decided to reread it before this to kind of remember the details. I honestly didn't remember too much, and I was very surprised by it. And I was surprised by, and I was happy I did it because there were a lot of details of things I had forgotten. But I was also like impressed with the feelings of it, and it was a good reminder to myself. Like I had forgotten like a lot of these things, and I needed to remember. So I started writing Tumor Clarity on that anniversary because I was still here. And I remember that first entry was like, happy anniversary, I'm still here, was what it was called. And I started to write, and I wrote a little bit about the story that I've shared here with you. But one of the things that most struck me was how my faith really pulled me through, and how unapologetic I am about it, because I've always been very respectful of other people's faiths or their points on the road. Like I always see it as a journey, and I don't expect people to have my faith or share my faith or believe the things I believe, and it's okay. Because I have enough of it for you, for everybody around me. I don't need to convince anybody. I don't want to convince anybody. I just want you to know I've got you.
Right,
you know?
right.
And I have that faith. And so when I was reading it, I read, like, the last sentence was, I will choose hope and faith every time. And I'm going to repeat that sentence. I will choose hope and faith every time. And that is how I have lived through these 9 years. I was given 9 months, and now I'm at 9 years. It'll be 10 years this coming February. And a lot has happened.
Yes.
You know, there's an expression in Spanish, ha caído mucha lluvia.
Yeah.
A lot. There's been a lot of rain in those 9 years. A lot has happened, and I'm still here. Yeah. And I'm a little bit like weaker in some areas, but stronger in most.
Right.
Because of it. And I really do credit. And so that, back to the blog, that blog really was a lifeline for me.
Yeah.
It really was a way of staying alive. And so every sentence and by the way, I wrote for over a year in it. It was like, the idea was like, I'm going to write 12 entries. Yeah. You know, for a year of life, so that they have those, and it went on and on. It went like, I think I stopped at like 18, and then I decided, well, I might as well compile this into a memoir at this point, and that's what I ended up doing. But I saw them as lifelines, like, you know, like it was like every sentence. I was being given, I'll tell you the name of my memoir is Life Sentences. I was given so many life sentences, like death sentences. Yes, yes. But I would choose to write sentences as lifelines.
But it's funny because you did it with the intention that, okay, I don't want my kids to forget me, who I am. But at the same time, I think it was a gift for yourself. Just like you mentioned, it became your lifeline. So it had like this duality of, I want to give this to my kids, but then surprise, surprise.
It surprised me.
It was for you too.
And even when I read it, it surprises me now. And it surprised me because it was a way of also me making sense. Of what was happening to me, and in the world. There's so many things happened in the world during that time, and I would write about it because I also wanted them to know, like, how I thought about things or how I felt about things, not just disease, not just what was happening to me, but my general outlook.
Your perspective on...
general things, you know, even hurricanes, like how I feel about hurricanes, you know, like
when you're in South Florida, that's that's part of life.
Like I want them to understand that, these big bad boys come through, but then the dust settles, you know, and you rebuild. And there's a lot of that in there. But yes, I started sharing, and then I would share, like, well, I'm not like an influencer. Like this is an interesting thing because this came up in my divorce. My ex-husband was like, well, she's an influencer. Like I only have it was like, it's my friend group, okay? That's not an influence. I would share with my friends, oh, this is my latest, blog entry. And I would share it, and I would get a really positive response, and it was surprising to me because I would like write it, like, and a lot of it was humorous, you know, and kind of like the way I am, you know, and there was some sad times and scary times and times that I didn't know what was going to happen or what was going to become of us, you know, but I kept, going at it and writing, and I remember, like this whole thing, my friends started to react and they were like, you should write a book. Mm-hmm. And that's what kind of landed me like, oh yeah, maybe I should. And what's really interesting is that when I was working in TV, what I most enjoyed about what I did was writing. And actually my very first job was with my friend that's here's mom, copywriting. Her mom is the one who taught me how to copyright. And I learned so much. And I remember loving that job, like loving that first year after college because I didn't get a TV job. They didn't hire me at Telemundo right away. According to them, I had too much experience. I was like, how did that happen?
Yeah.
But anyway, TV.
Yeah.
And so I started writing it. I was in advertising. I was writing and I really loved it. And I decided like, oh, I really like writing. And so in producing, what I most enjoyed about producing was the storytelling and the writing of it. And so when I was like reinventing myself as a woman with a brain tumor, and I still, because, oh, by the way, when you stay alive, when you survive these things, you have to work. You have to pay bills.
Right.
Like life is life. There's
life
a cost.
is expensive.
Life is expensive.
Yeah.
And there's a cost. The privilege of being alive comes with a price.
Yeah.
And you have to pay for it.
I love that. The privilege of being alive comes with a price. It's true.
It's true. You have to listen. You still have to eat. Yeah. You still have to pay the bills. And by the way, it's very expensive to stay alive when you have a brain tumor. Right. It's like, I think I calculated it when I saw like, now I have qualified for Medicare and they help. But when you price out, like one medication that I take to keep my brain swelling down is $43,000.
Oh my gosh.
Every 3 weeks.
Every 3 weeks?
Yes. One medication.
Wow.
So one day I wrote it all down. I was like, wow, it costs about $1.9 million to stay alive.
Well,
for me.
That's expensive.
Yeah.
So you got to keep working. You got to keep reinventing yourself. So anyway, in the middle of trying to heal
and stay and not be stressed and sleep. Yeah. Sleep is very important. All these things, I reinvented myself as a writer. So I went back to the thing that I started doing before TV, which was writing, copywriting, and I even went back to the same people. Right. I was even writing for my first coworkers, and then full circle. Life is all about full circles, these little circle moments. It's like these roads, but you all end up in the same spot. It's just where you decide to go and how long you're going to make that trip. Right. How many mountains are you going to cross in that trip, or many rivers? But you're going to get there. Right. You're going to get to the same spot. Yeah.
Which, speaking of taking roads and deciding on mountains and
all the many roads I've taken in this conversation.
So, because you've been through a lot, like I said, and I don't even know how long we've been talking so far, but there's still so much to go.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
No, don't apologize. It's like I said, it's incredible. No, but it's just a remarkable story. In the midst of all of this, you make a decision that's also life altering. And you get divorced.
Yes.
In the middle of all of this.
And it was so funny during that, I remember hearing tiene que tener gana in Spanish. You have to really want one. Yeah. You have to really want a divorce to get a divorce with a brain tumor. Yeah.
Right? And I mean, this is a severe diagnosis. You have 2 small children. Yeah. You were living with your mom at the time as well, right?
Yeah, because early on, we were still married. I would say before that first year, he wasn't working and I couldn't work.
When you got diagnosed.
When I got diagnosed. Mm-hmm. And so we couldn't really pay for the mortgage on the house. And so we needed to get renters. Yeah. And so we moved next door. My mom was our next door neighbor.
Oh, okay.
So we packed up and moved back home. I moved back home.
Yeah.
And we rented the house for like 2 years before the divorce. But yes, the divorce is an interesting conversation because I arrived at the divorce. So I see my brain tumor as a blessing. And it's something that made me brave in ways that I wasn't brave before. And it made me make decisions that I probably should have made long before this point, but that I didn't. For whatever reason, I could keep going the way I was going and I'd be fine. But when I got diagnosed and I was given a very, a hard deadline, I decided like, oh, well, things gotta improve here because like my kids are gonna be alone. Like the conversation with my ex-husband, you're going to have to start pulling your weight. You're going to have to, you have to start, preparing for it, right? Because when he's alone with the kids, it's a lot, and my mom was still alive at the time. And I looked around me and I saw all these like things that are happening. There was a lot of like people just kind of paralyzed by what was happening. And I go to Lourdes. So this is a funny thing of how I arrived at divorce. It was actually through a pilgrimage to Lourdes.
Lourdes, France.
Lourdes, France. So my mother, who was very faithful and was always very like, tiene que ir a Lourdes. My mom's, we have to get to Lourdes.
To see Our Lady of Lourdes, for those who are not aware,
To Our Lady of Lourdes. Yeah. And our parish is Our Lady of Lourdes here in Miami. And my mother, like one day I went to get some tickets for like a fair for the kids, red bracelets. And the woman that's working in the office, my mom comes across the brochure for Lourdes and she goes, "Ay, Luisa, tenemos que ir. We have to go there. You need to go drink the water, the miracle water of Lourdes, and we have to go," because she was so convinced that I would be healed going to Lourdes. And which many
people go, for those of you who are not aware, Lourdes, France, like the apparition of Our Lady of Lourdes, which is the apparition of the Blessed Mother to a young girl named Bernadette. Yes. And there's water started coming out from this like grotto that there was no water.
In the trash heap.
Right. And now it's, the water's still running and it's a beautiful place. And there's a lot of healings that have happened there. And a lot of people go there.
Healing. There's a lot of miracles that have been attributed to that apparition. And
so your mom believed
my mom believed that she believed we needed to go there. And I didn't know a heck of a lot about, listen, we went to Catholic school, but it's not like I really paid all that much attention to the apparitions, really what's going on in the apparitions. I'm like, oh, Mary, I like her. I love Mary. But I don't understand, all this, I was actually more about La Virgen de la Guadalupe than I was about La Virgen de Our Lady of Lourdes for other reasons, but whatever.
But your mom insisted.
My mother insisted. Yeah. And everything worked out. And it's a very long story and it's a beautiful story. And I wrote about it in my blog. But the point is that we are there at Lourdes together. And people think I went to Lourdes to pray for a healing for myself or a miracle for myself. But you have to understand, this is now over a year into this story. It's 2 years in. I'm alive.
Yeah. And you went just you and your mom?
Just my mom and I.
Okay.
Just it was perfect. Mm-hmm. And we get there and my mom was fervently praying for me, but I wasn't praying for me. I was praying that my mom would live 100 years because she always wanted to live 100 years for some reason. And I was praying for, I was grateful. I was giving thanks. My whole time there, I was crying the whole time. And people thought I was crying because I was dying. But I was crying from joy. I was so happy to see Lourdes, to make it there, to be with her, to see her joy, to see her faith, because I didn't have the faith that she had. I was like, wow, this is beautiful. Yeah. To see the faith that my mother had, that I would be healed, was amazing. And then I was seeing and then it's a place for for mother-daughters. I'll be honest with you. It's like the perfect mother-daughter trip is Lourdes. Because you get there and it's like, it's Our Lady. It's Jesus' mother bringing you to her son, which I did not understand until I was there. I thought this place was all about her.
Right.
Right? Like, to me, it was like, oh, yeah, Mary's going to, but she's not the one that heals you.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So we get there, and my mom was like us. And I remember I was thinking about my life a lot, about my kids back home, and about what had happened to me. And I was very grateful, but I was also very worried about my kids.
Okay.
And about what was going to happen once I was gone, because I was going to go. I mean, it was only a matter of time.
Yeah.
And I started to think, and all of a sudden I thought about my mother-in-law that I never met because she died of cancer when my ex-husband was like 24, maybe. He was young. But not a baby, not like my kids would be, but young. And it had impacted his life a lot. And I had seen how much grief there was from that experience, and my sister-in-law and my ex-husband and the whole family and for some reason I was thinking about her, and I thought he's not happy. Javier's not happy. Like, I had been an enabler my entire marriage. I had taken care of things. I had a lot of it, but there was something about it that I realized, you know what? Like, I don't think he's happy. I'm not happy. He's not happy. And
being in the relationship.
In the marriage, it wasn't like we were holding each other back even before the tumor in a lot of ways. That, like, I felt like I was carrying a cross that was not mine to carry. Was the message that I got loud and clear there. And I thought about his grandmother, and I thought, and I know that if he sees this, he'd be very upset that I'm, but I did think about them, and I thought about myself, and I thought about all the ways that I've carried crosses that are not mine to carry, and that I was maybe not helping him, that he needed to feel the full weight of the cross himself to be prepared for when I wasn't here to pick up the slack.
Right.
With the kids. And that maybe it was an act of love to get a divorce, because I was going to be helping him maybe reach his full potential, maybe his full happiness, no longer relying on me, the Luisa that picks up all the pieces or, keeps the balls in the air, like, juggling all the things that women, we tend to do.
Yeah.
And we tend to mother.
Yeah.
And I wasn't helping anybody. It became for some reason there in Lourdes, I became very aware that I needed to get a divorce.
Wow. For
my kids' well-being and for his.
And do you think you found that in the divorce?
Yes. Now, it wasn't easy.
Of course. It never is.
It wasn't easy. It was really, you have to really want to get a divorce to get one like that. But we were put through the ringer. It was a very, very stressful time because of the choices we make. Like, I was at peace with my decision. My husband was not. And so it became very dramatic, for the kids, for my family, for everybody. And now we're at peace. Now it's been 5 years, and I think we're at a peaceful spot in the story, and
your kids are okay with it.
And my kids are okay with it, and my kids understand it.
Yeah.
And nobody gets married thinking they're going to get divorced. It's not the ideal. It's not what you want. It's not why you got married. But there was something about it that I felt. It was almost, again, like a lifeline for me. It was like a life. Like it was something I needed to do so that they would be okay, and it was financial. I put my whatever I could into a trust for them. Like, I was really thinking about my kids.
Yeah.
And what would be the ultimate. Like, I felt like at the time, somebody's going to have to be an adult here. And I think it's going to have to be me, and I have to get this going, because there were so many messes around us. Not just financial. It was like also my mother. Like, we were living with my mother. She was older. She was, we were living off her pension. It wasn't fair to her.
Yeah.
Things that were like, I need to take care of this, because once I'm gone, I'm going to leave a tremendous mess for everybody.
Yeah.
And that's how I felt. And it was what I did for peace too.
So you feel that the decision of the divorce, as difficult as it was, and ironic to have received that message at Lourdes, right? Because that's not what usually
That's not what you expect.
You're expecting, or you hear most people get that message. But do you feel like there was, looking back on it now, do you feel like there was a positive outcome from that? Yeah.
Yes. And I feel like it was, listen, the message wasn't like Jesus telling me, Luisa, get a divorce. It wasn't that. Mm-hmm. It was more about bravery, more about courage. Yeah. It was more about, you need to be truthful about the situation that you're in. Yeah. And this is not serving you, and it's not serving him. You're not, you haven't been happy or fulfilled, or it's been a very uneven relationship for many years. Yeah. And it's not serving anyone, and you're actually hurting him. It's like you're hurting, you're not just yourself, you're hurting him, and you're ultimately hurting your children. It was more like that kind of messaging. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like, Lucy, you need to get a divorce. Right. But it was about courage. And it was about being truthful to myself and for the sake of the people around me. So when I came back, I had it in my heart that I had to do it, but I prayed on it a lot. It wasn't like I came back and I got a divorce. Another whole year passed. Oh, okay. And my divorce was, and this is another thing about God's grace in my life, is that because I have a terminal diagnosis, I got something in the court called the bifurcation, which is really like unheard of. Nobody, but it usually is awarded, a judge will award a bifurcation, which is an immediate divorce based on a terminal, illness, or it has to be, or really, really terrible outcomes, like unfortunately, like abuse cases or things that are like, that for the safety of the people involved. But I needed that bifurcation because I needed to get our finances in order quickly. And by the way, I was never going to leave my husband with nothing. You know what I mean? Like, I was like going to give half my 401k, everything. Like, it wasn't about hurting him. Yeah. It was about like helping my children. Mm-hmm. And that's really how I went into it. And it was a very difficult process, as divorces are. And you hear a lot of ugly things. And he was very hurt. And I understand it now. And he was very hurt by it. And so he was grasping at straws and looking for reasons and saying very ugly things. And then I remember being in the courtroom and hearing his attorney describing like a person that I didn't know. Like, he was describing me and my motives for divorce and all that, and it was not the case. And I just sat quietly, but I remember thinking, I don't know who they're talking about. Right. It's not me. Yeah. And that helped me because it helped me move forward, because I realized, this isn't love either. Right. Right. And you don't tear people down because you're not getting what you want, or you're not, you know what I mean? Yeah. And everybody had to like brave up, everybody had to get brave in that moment. And so, it was rough. And I remember, my faith has been so important to me that, to me, it was very important that my boys received a Catholic education. Mm-hmm. And at the time they were in public school, and I wanted them to be ready for what's to come. Mm-hmm. And I wanted him to have the same faith foundation that I had, that it was serving me so well through all these things. Yeah. Right? I wanted him to have that community, and I had a feeling that they weren't going to get it, and their father, even though he was raised Catholic, wasn't as good at communicating it, or like, he had his doubts, he had his fears, and I was a fearless person. Mm-hmm. I was not fearful. And I wanted them to know that, my kids to know that. And so I felt that they would get that fearlessness through faith. Right. So I wanted them to go to a school. Not that it's going to be perfect, but they could decide for themselves, once they had a foundation, what they were going to believe or how they were going to proceed in their life. Well, but as a mother, I wanted to give them that foundation. Of course. No, and by doing that, you plant seeds, and maybe you don't see the fruit of it right away. But like you said, it's a foundation. And then, And the reason I bring it up is because it came up in the divorce. Mm. He didn't want, it was like a point of contention over paying for private school. Yeah. And I was like, I don't know why this is a point of contention, because I'm going to pay for it. And it had to be put in the door. He wanted it in the divorce that I was sole responsible, financially responsible for that. But it was very important to me.
Yeah.
And so I put my kids through private, education. I was, that's why I kept working, because you have to keep working, know.
Because again,
and
it's expensive
it's
to be alive.
and I did have my mother, and my mother's support was tremendous. Not just financially. My mother was always a very brave woman, a very funny woman.
Yes.
And very kooky, kind of quirky woman. And I miss her tremendously. But she I don't think I could have done any of this had she not been.
Well, because we haven't really talked about this, but, in addition to, I forgot what it was called, the gamma.
Yeah, the gamma knife.
But your treatments are chemo.
Yeah, so every 3 weeks. Yeah. So since there is no cure, I was going to be on chemotherapy indefinitely. And their idea was like, well, indefinitely until you die.
Yeah.
Right? But now you're looking at, I was 7 years in on chemo. I did 7 years of pills, of chemotherapy pills.
Wow. That's a long time.
Which were really, really took a toll. They did have an effect on me. Yeah. On my body, on my organs, other organs that are also very necessary.
Yes.
And
we take our organs for granted, but yes.
I'm telling you. And so 7 months in, I had a heart attack.
So tell me about that. I was getting there.
But
yeah.
This is where I'm going to go with this. It's funny because I find humor in all this.
Silver linings.
I have a heart attack in the summer of 2022.
So this is how
July.
many years? So this is 6 years after your
7
initial.
Years. It was 7 years
after your initial diagnosis, right?
Diagnosis. Okay. And I was feeling like my oncologist told me, take your blood pressure. I'm not liking where it's going. It's going up. And so in the course of a weekend, 3 days, I took my blood pressure and it kept going up, and it was really, really out of whack. And I do end up in the hospital, and I did have a heart attack. And I remember the doctor coming into the room and asking, has anyone in your family, has your mother or your father suffered a heart attack before age 60? And at the time I was 54. And I was like, oh, yeah, my father had a heart attack at 54, as a matter of fact. I'm 54. And the doctor goes, and you have a heart disease. You have cardiovascular heart disease. Wow. It's genetic. But I had stopped thinking about heart disease with a brain tumor because I thought I'd be taken out before the heart disease could start showing up.
Yeah.
Right? But here I was. Lucky you're alive. You get to experience heart disease.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, gosh,
And how did you take that?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I think heart disease was scarier for me. And I think it was because of what happened. So I had a heart attack, and then they had to do a cath procedure because I had, at the time, they thought a 75% blocked right coronary artery. They go in, it was 99% blocked.
Oh my gosh.
They were trying to get out quickly. My cardio, my veins were, my arteries were very frail because of the chemo for 7 years. And as they're coming out, my iliac artery is severed in my leg, and I start to bleed out. And they had to hang 5 units of blood. There's only 7 in the human body. Yeah. So 5, I was bleeding quickly, and they had to bring in a cardiovascular surgeon that was miraculously next door. They came in and quickly, these doctors were amazing, and repaired the injury, but I was near death, and I remember hearing about this, and by the way, she's in the room, she was there too. So I remember hearing about this experience, it was kind of, and again, I was having a conversation. I was in that room going in for a cath procedure, And the doctor, the surgeon, the cardiologist had told me, hey, listen, do you like music? Do you mind if we play music? And I go, yeah, no, I love music. Do you like rock? Yeah, I love rock. So, do you like the Eagles? Yeah, I love the Eagles. So as I'm on the table.
So you're awake.
Yeah, because you're in twilight. Like when they're doing those things, you're awake because they have to ask you questions and all this stuff. And I'm awake and I'm hearing. So I'm hearing oh wow, it's like butter, like, oh my God, like, and like, oh, this is really blood. Oh wow, it's a good thing we went in. This is 99% blood. I could have dissected I could have had an aortic dissection. And I'm listening to all these conversations. And again, because of my training in Grey's Anatomy,
right.
I was aware of what was happening. And so all these things are happening. All of a sudden, the tone changes, and I'm hearing "Take it easy, take it easy," like the Eagles, and I'm hearing the doctor not taking it easy. Like I'm hearing panic.
Right.
And I'm hearing call the next door quickly, and I feel the blood in my leg. And I remember looking at the light, like talking to Jesus. Because my prayers are conversations.
Yeah.
So I was like, wow, like. If you can find it in your heart, like if you can find it in your mercy, like not to take me today, like now, if I can make it out of here today, because this doctor's son is friends with my nephew. And my nephew is studying in law school right now, and he's going to blame this poor doctor. And this poor doctor is really nice. These are the conversations I'm having. It's not his fault, like what's happening to me. And I could hear the panic in his voice. And I'm thinking, and I don't want to die on this doctor. He's really nice. And also I got lazy. I'm telling you, this is the conversation I'm sharing it with you that I was having. And I go, and I got lazy and I didn't finish the trust papers for my kids. And I just need to finish filling it out to give it to my brother. Like, and Alicia was helping me, like my best friend who's in, and I still have to do it. And I just have to make sure that they know where they are. If I could just make it out of the hospital, if you can find it in your mercy,
That's your conversation with Jesus. My
conversation.
As all of this is happening.
And I promise you I'll be ready next time you call me. But I'm just not ready right now. Like that was the conversation I was having.
Right.
And I'm hearing the panic and all this stuff. And I made it out.
Yeah.
And I'm like in intensive care, and the first conversation, the first person that speaks to me in my ear is here in this room right now and says, don't do that again. Don't ever do that again. And I was like coming out of like, oh,
sorry.
I was like, yeah. But by the way, I remember, I don't know if you remember, but I remember I was like, Christine, I should say my friend Christine is here in the room. Yeah. And I couldn't stop like my teeth.
Like chattering your
teeth?
Uh-huh.
And it was painful. I remember thinking, I'm going to lose my teeth. Like I was very cold.
Okay.
I had they had to reinfuse me with 5 pints of blood. And I was, by the way, I think I weighed like 300 and something pounds. Like I was like bloated from liquid over time. I found out because of all the fluids that had to be pumped in to keep me alive in that moment. Yeah. And I didn't know this. And I remember thinking like I felt like Queen Amidala from Star Wars because I had like all these like blankets over my head.
I love this conversation because it's all these things are so dramatic, but yet you always bring humor into it.
I remember thinking, wow, I feel like Queen Amidala. And everybody was like super like shocked. Like I remember the faces of my friends that were in the room, the faces of my mom and my brother. Like they were just like,
they were scared.
Shocked. Like I could sense that something bad had gone down, like really bad.
Yeah.
Right? And that I'm lucky to be here. Mm-hmm. And I knew, but I really did feel as the days progressed, more complications happened. I got blood clots, things happened. There was a point in time, I was 2 weeks in the ICU. There was a point in time that I thought, I'm not going to make it out of here. Like there was something about it that didn't feel like the brain tumor or like, by the way, that brain tumor biopsy, everybody was there too, praying for me. Like same thing, the same cast of characters are all there for me. And I felt it, but there was something about it, because you asked me, Faith, that I felt detached somehow. Something had broken. in that room that had untethered me from my faith.
Okay.
Like from Jesus. And I remember being in that room thinking, where are you? Like I remember thinking, where's my faith now? Like where's Mary now? Where's Jesus now? I'm not feeling it. Like I'm not feeling you guys. Like I have these conversations.
Yeah.
I don't know where you are. Like I'm sad about it.
Yeah.
But I can't feel it. I don't know where you are. And one of these moments, I develop a blood clot, and they have to take me to another like treatment area. And then there was like this during this time, like the Anna Delvey documentary was on Netflix. The lady that was like a total like liar about
everything, yeah,
like inventing Anna or whatever. And the doctor is a little Ukrainian doctor comes in with these two like. And she had the Anna Delvey glasses. I'm thinking, oh my God, is this really a doctor? Does she know what she's doing? Like, I was like, really, I watch too much Netflix. You can tell. I'm at home. That's all I do.
And you're a creative too.
And so I'm seeing there with these needles because she had to inject the blood clot. And she's looking at this scan and I'm thinking, what's going on here? And they take me into the room. And the room, they were going to do another Doppler to see if they got the blood clot. And I'm looking around and I'm thinking, God, I don't know where, why do I not feel your presence? Yeah. And I looked around the room and there was like a cork board with company communications and there was nothing else in the room. And then I look in front of me and there was the Sacred Heart of Jesus. There was like a little, like
a prayer card kind of
prayer card. Yeah. And I was like,
where did you come from?
Exactly. The reaction, I was like, what are you doing there? Right? And I looked around. I looked at the doctor, the guy that was looking at the technician. And I looked at the prayer card and I felt like it was looking at me, how drawn, portraits, the eyes follow, they're good portraits.
Yes.
And I felt like, are you looking at me? And I felt like he was looking at me.
Yeah.
And I suddenly had peace. Like I felt, there you are.
Yeah.
Right? Like I felt it was this prayer card, but it wasn't the card that was there. It's like I felt the presence. And I felt I need to receive communion. Listen, I should add to you guys, I am not an academic Catholic. I'm not like one of these that really knows her faith like you probably do. You taught it.
Well, I'm learning, but yeah.
I am not a
deep theologian, let's say.
I am a feeling Catholic. I just feel it,
Yeah.
But I am not the most. You don't ask me questions about the faith because I probably can't answer it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I just know what I know. Like I know I love my kids.
Yeah.
And I know that there's God. And I know that Jesus and Mary and the Holy Spirit are real. And I have felt their presence. But I remember coming out of it. And the reason I say that is because I really related to, St. Bernadette, not knowing.
Right.
Being a child that didn't know faith.
Yeah.
And telling the priests that were interviewing her, at the time, well, she said she's the Immaculate Conception. And people being how would she know that?
Right.
I felt heard. I would say things that I'm like, where is this coming from? And so I come out of that room and I'm like, I need to receive communion. And Christine was here. Christine was there, by the way. And she works for Baptist Hospital. This is all taking place at Baptist Hospital. And I said, I need to receive communion. I need to see a priest. I felt like and it happened to have been a Sunday and I didn't know because you lose total track of time. Yeah. And she called the whatever number for the and they got me the priest. And I remember she left because she had to go do something. And she leaves and the priest comes in, gives me communion. And I was feeling great.
Yeah.
And he was like, who called me? Where's the person that called me? I spoke to somebody on the phone. Oh, that's my friend. But she's not here? Oh, I wanted to talk to her. He had told me that. I think he wanted to thank her or who knows, Christine? Who knows
what the message was for you?
But I remember thinking, wow. And ever that's when I reconnected again, realigned with everything. And I understood, I was I was going to be okay. But before that, there's something very fragile about heart attacks that you feel more fragile.
Yes.
You feel there's something about it. I did get depressed, where I didn't get depressed with the brain tumor. I spent like a couple weeks on the couch watching Netflix, more Netflix. And then I had to, it took me a while. I had to rehabilitate. I remember in the hospital when I had the heart attack, I was going to go to Greece with a friend of mine on a writer's retreat for my memoir, like writing. I was writing all this time. And we had made plans to go together. And we were 3 weeks out of that trip when I had the heart attack. Wow. And I remember when they're telling me they're going to give me, that I had to do a catheterization, I go, well, yeah, but I'm traveling to Greece in 2 weeks. Like kind of the camping trip. Like
back to the camping trip. Now this time it's Greece.
I was like, I'll be able to go, right? Mm-hmm. And the doctor like, okay, let's just do the catheterization, see how you do. But it was like that kind of reaction. But I'm going to go, right? Well, a year after the heart attack and the injury to my iliac artery and everything else that happened to me that year, I was at that doctor's office. A year to the date, not realizing, because this happened to me on July 26th. They did the catheterization July 28th of 2022. And the reason I'm so good with those dates is because they mean something to me. Mm-hmm. And July 28th was the day they did that. And there I was at that doctor's office, and she looks at me and she's seeing, because you should see my medical records are scary shit. Like, but when people look, every time I go see a new doctor, they're like, they don't know what to do with me, right? And she was looking at everything that happened, and she was like, wow, you're doing amazing. You're doing so well. I would celebrate if I were you. And I was like, well, oh, that's right. It's been a year. A year to the day today, and you are doing fantastic. And I looked at her and I go, do you think I could go to Greece?
You still stayed with the Greece thing.
I really wanted to go to Greece.
Yeah.
And she, I don't see why not. So I called my friend that I was going to go to Greece with that one time. She ended up going without me because she, I lost that money on the writer's retreat, but she went. I told her, hey, Lisette, we can finally go to Greece. They told me, and I think it was that was July. September, I was in Greece.
That's amazing.
3 months later, I was in Greece.
You got to go?
And I got to go to Greece. And so, I don't know where we're going, but I wanted to say...
it's just a remarkable thing, everything that you've been through. And, that part of where you talk about that you felt that desolation, even though you had this incredible conversation with Jesus as the emergency was happening. But then he answered your prayer.
Yeah.
But yet you felt desolation. And I've heard... and again, I'm not a deep theologian either. I'm just very curious and I'm always learning.
More than me.
But because I read Mother Teresa felt desolation for 4 decades. Mother Teresa.
Yeah.
And they say that when you feel that, it's actually God is even closer to you. It's very paradoxical, I guess is the word you would use.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so... it's interesting hearing you talk about it because you're going through a heart situation and the image that you see is the sacred heart of Jesus,
right? It's not lost on me, believe me.
Right. So it's exactly. It's not a coincidence because nothing is a coincidence. And so he was just letting you know, your heart is in my heart. He was telling you, I have your heart. It's in mine. Now I'm getting emotional. I'm not supposed to be the one getting emotional here, Luisa. Thank you.
Something you've made me realize in this conversation of just how there are no coincidences. The last Mass that my mother and I went together to, we went to go see, I think it's Sister Bernadette.
Bernadette would be...
No, but there's a nun that speaks about the power of the Eucharist. And healing, that I cannot remember her name right now because we talked about so many things I forgot. But we went to St. John Newman and it was my birthday. And it was January 17th. And I remember looking at my mom going, you know what? It's my birthday. We should go to this Mass with this nun who doesn't live here. She lives, I think, in Tampa, as a matter of fact. I'm not sure.
I think I've heard of her. I'm just not, it's not clear to me right now.
So she speaks about healing through the Eucharist. And somebody had told me about it. I didn't know about it. I didn't even know who she was. I just know that there was this thing happening on my birthday. What a coincidence. I should go.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That there was something calling me that I needed to go to that with my kids and my mom. And we went. And it was like a really long, and by the way, she was funny. She was like my kind of nun.
Yeah.
She was funny. She was like relatable. She was like, telling stories that I could engage with, and she talked about the Eucharist, and I understood it so much. Like the importance of receiving the Eucharist and the body of Christ and healing. And my mother enjoyed the Mass very much. She didn't understand. It was in English. And my mother was like, hey, and she couldn't really, and she's Irish. She's an Irish nun. And so the accent.
Yeah.
And I had to explain to Fidelina.
Your mom.
Because I know you love that. By the way, I would write about her all the time in my posts. Because she's a character that was always with me. But Instagram became my next extension, right, of the Fidelina Chronicles.
Yes.
But I would have to explain to her what the nun was saying. And my kids were like, Mom, that hit different. That Mass hit different. Like, they enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And my mother, that was January. My mother passed away in March.
Wow.
So, but it's what you're saying. It's like there are no coincidences.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that have happened to me. And yes, I have felt that desolation. I've felt like I understand when people describe Jesus in the garden and that moment of,
the agony.
The agony in the garden. I understand that. I understand how both things could be true, that you could have faith and lose it at the same time, that you could be, that you could feel scared and joyful. I understand it.
It's funny because I've spoken to a priest. We were talking earlier before we started recording about, the importance of getting mental therapy, like counseling, right, with therapists, but also spiritual direction can be so helpful, during moments of crisis. We kind of don't rely on that necessarily in our society, right? And this priest that I met with said, I'm telling him I'm freaking out. I had all these, bouts with anxiety that were unexplainable to me because I'm not an anxious person naturally. And he brought up the agony in the garden and he said, but that's part of our humanity, and even Jesus had his agony in the garden, right? And so sometimes I think we're too hard on ourselves to just accept that, this sucks.
Yeah.
Right. And it's okay to be like what you said about after your the incident with your, the heart attack and everything that happened to you, that you went into this depression. It's like, it's not that it's okay to be depressed. I guess what I'm trying to say is that sometimes it's okay to just like embrace that sorrow and just, say,
you
okay,
have to be in that feeling.
You have to feel that. You have to go through that so that then you can also surrender, right?
Very key.
Accept what's happening. And then, like you said earlier, but then you also have to cooperate with God and do what you have to do. But you have to live in that moment, whether it's a short period of time or a few days or a few weeks, whatever it is. It's not good to stay there perpetually, but just feel it, because I think also it's also a good time to be in the stillness that you mentioned earlier as well, important. Because that's where you learn. That's where you are able to you
have to get quiet.
Yeah, get quiet, block out the noise so you can feel like the wisdom that is being given to you in all of these lessons. And that is at the heart of this podcast, which is where I'm going to next. And I'm so sorry about the loss of your mom. It's because I know she was your BFF, but she's with you in a different way.
It's funny because my kids will tell you we were always arguing. I mean,
but that's part of it.
But that's a mother-daughter relationship. But we had a very funny relationship. She would call me peleona, and I would be like, "You're hard-headed," and we were back and forth, But it's
the banters and all of that. Yeah, I had the same relationship with my mom. But you miss it.
I miss it.
You miss that, right? But they're with us in a different way, and sometimes it's hard to feel that, when you're going through the grief process. But all of this to say, and you shared so many nuggets of wisdom throughout this conversation, but what would you say, has been the biggest lesson for you in all of this journey?
I think, and I shared, I often think about this. To me, it's going to be okay. Mm-hmm. Like, no matter what it is that you're going through, no matter how hard it seems, no matter how dark things are around you, tomorrow is going to come. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be okay, no matter what it is. Yeah. And you just have to hang on, mm-hmm. Take a deep breath. Be in that moment, like what you said about being in those feelings. I think it's very important to be still and to feel all the feelings are all valid. Everything you're feeling, fear, joy, all of it. But I've come to learn it's going to be okay. Like when I think about when we talked about the divorce, I remember being in the throes of that and thinking, I'm not going to survive this, right? This is really very stressful. And I don't see an end to this. I don't see a happy day or like where the kids are going to be okay and happy. And I remember seeing a quote by Tony Robbins that said, stop worrying about all the things that could go wrong and start thinking about the things that could go right. Like that glass half empty, half full that we were talking about at the beginning. And when I switched that, I go, start thinking about the things that could go right. Mm-hmm. And that switch was very important to me. And I started to just be in that moment, take a deep breath, and know that it's going to be okay. And a lot of it is surrender. You have to give in and surrender. Like you have to realize that you don't have all the answers, and you're never going to have all the answers, and that's okay.
Or control, right? We want to control everything, right? And we want to have this, the planner and the checklist and, okay, we're going to do this and we're going to do this and we're going to do this and we're going to do this. And it's like, no.
You know what I learned from my mom's passing? Because she was a teacher and she taught me till the end. Yeah. I don't know. Is that there was no amount of preparation that I could do for my children. There I was on the table, like, oh, please, God, let me out of here so I can do my trust, and then you can call me. and all these things I did, the divorce, because I want you guys to be okay, the education, I want you guys to be okay. I want to do all these things so you guys can be okay. And then I lost my mother, and I realized all that is for naught. Yeah. Because they're not going to be okay. Right. And that's okay. Yeah. They're going to feel it, and they're going to have to feel it, and it's going to be hard. Yeah. Because let me tell you, like, nobody prepares you. Mm-hmm. Like, I know that you've lost your mother. Yeah. Like, I remember you being told, when I lost my father, who I adored, like, being told by Don Francisco, like, being told, oh, nothing will prepare you for the death of your mother. And I was like, is this meant to help me? Like, like, okay. But he was right. Yeah. Because that's your mother is kind of like the umbilical cord of the universe, right, like it's your mother brought you into this world. She will love you no matter what, no matter what you do or don't do, what you failed to do or achieved. She doesn't care. She's going to love you no matter what. Yeah. That's a mother, and they will do whatever is necessary to make sure you're okay. And my mother did everything she could while she was here to make sure that my children and I were okay. Yeah. And she gave us a home, she gave us love, she gave us everything she could. She wasn't perfect, right. And she drove me crazy, but she did everything for us. And so when I was in the hospital and seeing my mother, knowing my mother was gone, and seeing all these doctors fighting over and having her Grey's Anatomy moment, teaching those doctors about liver failure and about things, all the things that could go wrong, and hearing the things that I've heard throughout my medical story is like, we don't understand how she's still here. We don't understand how this works. We don't understand. She's very strong. I would hear those things about her. Yeah. And I would just be sitting outside that room waiting for my family to arrive and thinking, my mom was a teacher and she's teaching them. Yeah. She's teaching them. They're asking all these questions of me. They're learning how to treat the family members in a bad situation. These are lessons that they as young doctors need to learn. They're doing everything they can to fight for her life that I know is gone. Yeah. Right? And I saw it like lessons. And then I looked around the room and saw my kids crying and saw everybody around me, and me and my brother and everybody but there was peace in that moment because my mother was one of 11 children. And they were all in Cuba. My mother only had one sister here in the U.S. with her when we left Cuba. And I honestly looked around that room and there was like a cousin or a member or somebody on the phone from Cuba, a representative of everybody of all her brothers and sisters.
Right.
She was one of 9 that lived,
Yeah.
because they died young, 2 of them. And I was thinking, this is beautiful.
Yeah.
This is the silver lining in these ugly moments.
Right.
That that we don't understand. That, this is horrible what's happening. But in the end, she touched all these people's lives.
Yeah.
And all of them wanted to be there for her and for us. And that's beautiful.
It is. It's a gift.
It's a gift.
It's a gift.
And so I believe that I learned that from her death. That yes, my children, I could do all the planning in the world. But in the end, I just got to make sure I leave them with happy memories.
Right.
And funny stories and things that and maybe a pile of papers they have to figure out what to do with. Because I spent this last year trying to sort through a pile of papers.
Yeah.
And by the way, my mother passed away, like I told you, it's going to be March 28th. She passed on Holy Thursday. And my son and I have been cleaning all the silver in the church for the Easter Mass before. And so we ended up preparing the table for her. Not knowing. But what was funny about it, a year into it, I would be in her room and I would find my mother was a writer, but as she would leave little Post-it notes. And one day I find the funniest thing, she would write in notebooks. A teacher, she would start writing, I'm going to write about this, or a thought or whatever. And I find a querida Luisa Maria, that's my name, que no te pase lo que me pasó a mí. And that was it.
Wow.
Let's translate that. Talk about a cliffhanger.
Right. Oh my gosh, I can't translate it.
The translation is that don't let what happened to me happen to you.
Right.
And I'm thinking, what happened to you? Right. What do you mean?
What are you talking about?
And then I'm looking around the room, and the room was a mess. It was like a hoarder's paradise. The woman held on to every memory and every physical memory of the loved ones that she could hold, that room could hold, even memories of people that she didn't even know, but she felt bad throwing away their stuff.
Right.
And all these, and I looked at it and I go, yeah, I'm not going to hold on to all this because the memories are in my heart and in my memory. I chose to interpret that like that. She, maybe at that time, she wanted to tell me something else. Yeah. But in that moment, it seemed appropriate that what she wanted me to do was let go of that pain, let go of those things and just keep going.
That's beautiful. Let go and let God, right?
And let go and let God.
Luisa, your story is unbelievable. It's remarkable. But more beautiful than, your story, what you've been through isn't beautiful, but there is beauty in it.
There is.
In that you just, like I said earlier, you just continue to radiate light and positivity. And you do see the good in everything. And I'm so grateful for you to have been here and shared all of this with us because it's inspiring. It's inspiring. And even though, all of our stories are so different, but yet the lessons and the experiences that you gain from it are so relatable. So thank you. I wish you nothing but the best. I always pray for you.
Thank you. And you know what? I'm going to say something about prayer. I always pray for people. When people tell me anything, but my prayers are conversations with God. And in those conversations, it's always about giving that person peace and to accept whatever is to come, right? But I've always prayed, and I felt all the prayers. I felt when I've been through everything I've been through, I cannot explain it. But it's a feeling of being uplifted, bolstered, comforted, that it's a universal energy that is true, that is and that's why I don't know how you don't believe in God. I always tell people, I don't know, because I see it everywhere and I feel it. Yeah. And it really did help. And I want to thank everybody, and I want to thank you for praying for me and everybody, because let me tell you, we lost a lot of friends along the way that were praying for us or praying for me, and they're not here. And so I feel like I need to continue living my best, to the best of my ability, do my physical therapy and occupational therapy, and do everything to stay as, as whole as possible for as long as God sees it, but for them too, because they didn't get to. And so I am very grateful to be here with you and grateful for this opportunity to share what has happened, but more than anything, to share some hope with people. That everything's going to be okay, people. Everything's going to be okay.
Everything is going to be okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. And for all of you out there, remember, you are not alone. Let's go out and seek wisdom together. Thank you for joining us on the Seeking Wisdom podcast. If you enjoyed our content, hit that like button, subscribe, leave a review, or share so that we can keep building this community together.